Hello there, and welcome to my humble woodshop. My name is Nils with Learn to DIY Woodworking, and today we're covering 10 tips and tricks for measuring tapes, episode 2. Now, if you haven't seen my first video on 10 tips and tricks for measuring tapes, I'll put a link to that at the end of the video as well as in the description below. But for now, let's jump in. Number 10 on the list is using a tape measure to draw perfect circles. Let's say I needed to cut a circle out of this OSB that had an 8-inch diameter. I can first use my measuring tape to get an approximate center on it. Mark there and here. Okay. Then I can drive a screw right into the center. And then we can pull our measuring tape out. I'm just going to use the little one for this. And right at that 8, lock that in. And then we can just follow that circle all the way around. Perfect. There we go, just that easy. All right, tip number 9 is a little bit silly. This comes from Shane at DIY for Knuckleheads. I'll put a link to his video in the description below, but this one's just for fun. You can take your measuring tape, has to be one that's fairly long, at least about 10 feet. And I'm folding it in half, and I'm going to take the 0 side here and make it match up with our current year. So obviously there's not 2021 inches, but I'm going to go anything after 100. So I'm going to go to 121 to represent the year 2021. I'm going to put the 0 here, and then I'm going to tape this in place to make it really easy for the next part. We can actually move along, and we can see that if someone was born in the year 1987, for example, they would be 34 years old. So these numbers on the top are the year, and the numbers on the bottom are their age. So myself, for example, I was born in 78. Let's see if we can get that far down. Yeah, here we go. So there's 78, which makes me 43. So it works like a charm. Number 8 is using the little slot on the hook as an extra set of hands. Most measuring tapes have this little slot in the end of the hook. You can see there's a little hole right there, there, and there. And this is really handy for doing things when you need to take a longer measurement, for example, by yourself. You can take a nail or a screw and then just hook it right onto the end of that. And you can kind of see from, as I twist this around, that it grabs onto it really well, and it just gives me a reference point to go from. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're using this hook method like this with a screw or a nail is that the center, or the 0 point, is not actually the center of the screw right here like you would think. It's actually right here where the end of the tape is. So you got to make sure that you place your screw or nail accordingly so that that's the hook. If you don't need a super accurate measurement, then this will work just great, and it will only be off by about 1/8 of an inch either way. Number 7 is using the width of the tape measure itself to help you with inside measurements. Most full-size measuring tapes that are 25 to 35 feet are usually about 3 inches or larger, but most of them will also have an indication right on the bottom here that shows the exact measurement. This is perfect for getting inside measurements. So this one, as you can see, is 3 3/8. This one over here measures 3 1/4 inches or 83 millimeters. Our little guy here is 2 inches or 50 millimeters. And even this little one, this little cheap 6-footer here, barely see this here, but 53 millimeters right there. I don't know why they actually put that only in millimeters when the tape is in inches, but at least it's mildly helpful. Now, with the information of how wide our base of our tape measure is, you can use that to get tough inside measurements like this one. If I needed to measure the inside of this box, for example, I could put one end all the way through and the other, and then I can see right here, I don't know how well that shows up, but that's 14.5 inches. I add the 2 inches of the measuring tape itself, and that gives me 16.5. And in this case, we can easily confirm that right here. There we go, 16.5. Tip number 6 is offsetting your measurement for accuracy. So let's say in this case, for example, I needed to get the exact measurement of inside of this cubby for the bookshelf. One option is just to push the end in and then read your measurement right there. But if you need a little extra accuracy, and sometimes it's helpful to actually place one end exactly on your 1 inch mark. So I'm going to place one end right there, And then you get a little bit more of an accurate measurement, especially if you need it right down to the 16th or the 32nd. Now some people don't like doing that because you might forget to subtract the 1 inch afterward. So a common method is actually to start that from the 10-inch mark, and then you can get your measurement that way. It's a lot easier to see if you're 10 inches off than it is to see if you're 1 inch off. Number 5, by adding a simple magnet to your tape measure, it can turn it into a magnetic grabber, much like this one. This little extension magnet is super handy for different things around the shop, but a lot of times I just don't have this on me. I kind of keep it in one corner of the shop and I don't take it with me or anything. I don't really need to, because with a measuring tape with the metal hook on the end, all you need is some sort of a magnet like this one. You can put it on there and then you can pick up all kinds of things right with that, and it just makes it super easy. Now I've got this one corner of my shop over here that's like the corner of no return where everything gets lost. So I just dropped a screw down there just to illustrate this. I can just drop this guy down, see if I can fish it. Got it. And there it is. So that's a handy way to use a measuring tape as a magnetic grabber. Number 4, you can use 2 tape measures together like this to take the math out of some of those trickier fractions. So this trick works with any 2 measuring tapes really. Let's say we've got 2 maybe slightly trickier fractions that we want to add or subtract. Let's start with some easy addition. Let's say I've got one piece that's 4 1/8 and I want to add 5 3/16 to that. We can just put one measuring tape, the 0 mark or the hook, at 4 1/8, like so. And then we'll just follow the other end along until we get to 5 3/16. And so there's 5 and 1 2 3/16, and that puts us right there, which is 9 and it looks like 5/16. So that's an easy way to do some math just using the measuring tape. The same thing works if you want to subtract. So let's say I want to subtract our 9 5/16, and I want to take away from that the 5 3/16. So 1 2 3 4 5 right there, and then if I go to 5 3/16 here, that puts us right back at our 4 1/8. Perfect. So you can just use 2 measuring tapes if you don't want to do the math. I highly recommend you learn to work with fractions when you're using measuring tapes, but if you're in a jiff or in a bind, then this can help you out. Number 3 is using a bent in half tape measure to find the exact center measurement. So to find half of a measurement, all you need to do is extend your measuring tape out. I'm going to go with, let's go 45 3/8 here. So I'm going to put the 0 of the other end on 45 3/8. Then I can simply look up and see that it is about 22 11/16. And believe it or not, it's easier than you might think to actually look right at the middle of that and see what that center mark is. And if you don't get it spot on, you're going to get it within a 16th most of the time. It's just a quick way to get a half measurement if you don't want to do that math in your head. Number 2, when you're in a bind, you can use your fingers, your hand, or even your arm as an impromptu measuring tape. Now, if you just need a rough estimate of something from time to time, you can actually get a feel for what your own measurements are. So for example, I know that if I put my 2 fingers out like this, right around the middle, it's going to be about 1.5 inches. I can measure, for example, from the tip of my fingers to my elbow, and that's right about 19 inches. And you can use those types of measurements and then just get rough approximations of what things are. My favorite one to use is just your height. Typically your wingspan is about equal to your height. So I'm 6 feet tall. I know that from fingertip to fingertip is going to be 6 feet. And then another one that you can use that's really simple, because you all want to see my shoes, right? So you can measure your foot, and in this case, mine is almost exactly 12 inches. So not everybody's going to have that good of a luck with that, but I can pace something off foot to foot to foot to see exactly how many feet a distance is. And number 1, you can use a string or even a cable of some sort to get those harder to measure items. A lot of times you might have a circumference that you need to measure, or maybe an awkward set of dimensions. Like let's say you've got some rotating stairs and you need to find out how much carpet you need to follow them down. Then the easiest thing is to use some fabric measuring tape like this, wrap it around, and we can see that's about 12 1/8 there, maybe 12 1/4. and most people aren't going to have this handy, so you can really use just about anything. Some string or some twine works great. This right here is actually some actual line from a string trimmer, so I can hold it out to there. Let's put it on the top here and measure, and then I'm just going to pinch it right at the end where it overlaps, put out a measuring tape, and measure the difference. So in this case, if I go from right there to the end, right here, there we go. There's our 12 1/8, 12 1/4, and we get that measurement that way. You can really use just about anything with this. You can even use some speaker wire. Here's some stuff I just found hanging around. You can use a USB cable. Just be careful that some of these, if you're going for a super accurate measurement, this isn't the way to go. But you can use just about anything, especially to get an approximation. Now, I would love to learn which tips or tricks you found most useful and which ones were new to you, so be sure to leave a comment in the comments section below to share that with us. Also, if you haven't seen episode 1, you can check that out right here, where I go through my 10 original tips for measuring tapes. If you haven't subscribed already, please feel free to do so. I'll have episode 3 coming out before long. I'm Nils with Learn to DIY Woodworking. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.